A warning about traveling to Mexico as people set off for spring break.
Tonight, at least 5 states in Mexico have been given do not travel warnings, now renewing its warning for Americans not to travel to Mexico.
And that area of Mexico is under a level 4 travel advisory, the same as North Korea or Afghanistan, meaning Americans should not go there.
The U.S. State Department wants all American tourists to think twice before traveling to Mexico. In fact,
Texas authorities are issuing an urgent warning against travel to Mexico.
The U.S. government has travel warnings in place for all but 2 Mexican states, including those home to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico City, and Cancun.
All right, now to this story. Photos tell a horrifying story. An American tourist in recovery back in the U.S. and telling his story tonight about a nightmare in Mexico. He was mugged and left for dead.
Concerns have been heightened amongst especially spring breakers. So many Americans are traveling in the next couple of weeks to take their spring holidays, and many of them are doing that in Mexico.
We have some breaking news right now. 1 person is killed and 2 others injured at a shooting at a resort near Playa del Carmen in Mexico. All of the victims are said to be Canadian. The shooting happened inside Xcaret Resort, which is one of the major resorts in the area, among the most expensive, and is very popular with American tourists. Police say the incident started as an argument among guests. They say there is no indication yet that this is cartel related.
This morning, the State Department reminding Americans about travel advisories to Mexico following the harrowing kidnapping of 4 Americans at gunpoint that turned deadly.
The travel advisory for Tamaulipas State remains at level 4. Do not travel. We encourage Americans to keep that advice.
Is it time for America to wage war on the cartels? Growing pressure on Joe Biden to get tough with these drug lords and designate them as terrorist organizations after the brutal killing of Americans.
Images of sunny skies and sandy beaches shattered in Tulum, Mexico, after 2 tourists were caught in the crossfire of a shootout earlier this week. Authorities say 2 women are now dead, one from Germany, the other from India.
In August of 2021, my wife and I had been travelling Southeast Asia for about 9 months, and we knew it was time for a change when we were told to wear face masks at the beach in the Philippines. We had long discussed spending an extended period of time in Mexico, and when we decided that was going to be our next home base, we started doing what everyone does, looking up different places to go on YouTube. And it wasn't long until we found some very scary news clips about the dangers of travelling to Mexico. It really got us thinking and gave us a lot of doubt about coming here. When we announced in one of our videos our next stop would be Mexico, again, we were left with a lot of warnings about how dangerous the country is. Well, after spending the best part of 6 months in Mexico, we're here to tell you that our experience has been very different to what was portrayed in the mainstream media. That's not to say all of what's reported is false, but if you're planning on traveling to Mexico soon, you need to know the truth about what it's actually like to travel and live here. Then you can make an informed decision about whether or not it's safe to travel to this beautiful country. It's important to note that many people have differing opinions about what's considered safe and what's not. We are not here to tell you what to think, we're just going to give you the facts from our point of view. Travel warnings. The US government has recently reinstated travel warnings to most parts of Mexico due to violent crime, such as homicide, kidnapping, carjacking, and robbery being widespread and common in Mexico. There are currently level 4 travel warnings in the following Mexican states. A level 4 travel warning means do not travel: Colima, Guerrero, Michoacan, Sinaloa, Tamaulipas, Zacatecas. There is also a level 3 warning in the following states, which basically means reconsider your travel: Chihuahua, Durango, Guanajuato, Jalisco, Morelos, Sonora. The rest of Mexico is under a level 3 warning or level 2 warning, which basically means exercise increased caution or exercise normal precautions. It's important to note that Canada has also implemented similar travel warnings to Canadian citizens. Distance between Playa del Carmen and level 4 states. Okay, so we've spent most of our time here in Mexico living in Playa del Carmen in the state of Quintana Roo, while also traveling to Yucatan, Oaxaca, and Mexico State. I feel like it's important to note that the distance between where we live in Quintana Roo to most of these level 4 states is around 2,500 kilometers. That's around the same distance between Miami, Florida, and Toronto, Canada. So let that sink in. If there was a level 4 travel warning for Miami, would you feel in danger if you were living in Toronto? Places like the Yucatan Peninsula, Riviera Maya, Baja California, and Oaxaca currently have lower travel warnings than many places in Southeast Asia, including areas of the Philippines, Thailand, and Indonesia. But for some reason, it doesn't get talked about at all, and we never heard anyone telling us to not go there. Statistics. The following statistics are based on index crimes, a crime which is serious enough in nature and which occur with sufficient frequency and regularity such that they can serve index to the crime situation. The policy considers only the crimes of murder, homicide, physical injuries, kidnapping, and car theft. You've probably heard about the high crime rate in Mexico, but did you know that it currently ranks 39th in the world in crime rate per capita? And believe it or not, countries like the Bahamas, Fiji, Costa Rica, and Malaysia all have higher crime rates per capita than Mexico. But maybe the most important question is, who are these crimes being committed against? And are they all being reported? I can't answer for the latter, but I am sure in a lot of these countries, especially where there is high levels of gang activity, there are lots of crimes that go unreported due to various reasons. But are these crimes in Mexico being committed against tourists? While it is true that Mexico has a significantly higher homicide rate than the United States, data suggests violence against American citizens remains rare. In 2021, 75 US citizens died by homicide in Mexico, according to the State Department. That represents just a small fraction of the more than 28.8 million Americans who went to the country over the same period. Using those figures, the murder rate of US citizens in Mexico was around 0.26 per 100,000 visitors. That's significantly lower than the murder rate in the United States. Why does the US and Canadian governments apply these warnings? That's obviously up for speculation. You would like to think that the American government wants to keep its citizens safe and informed, which is what they should do. And look, I could be wrong about this, but there seems to be a very clear coincidence between Mexico having travel warnings around spring break time. Now, maybe that's just because they know that a lot of young American citizens will be planning to go to Mexico and they want to make sure that they stay safe. But is it possible that the US government would prefer tourism dollars to stay in the United States in places like Florida, for instance? Our personal experience. If I'm being completely honest, when we first arrived in Mexico, we were pretty timid and worried about walking around at night, for instance, catching public transport, and basically just all around a little bit scared of something bad happening to us. This could have been inflated by the heavy police and military presence, which is highly noticeable when walking around Playa del Carmen. But as we've spent more time here and travelled to other parts of the country, we've come to feel more comfortable and safe. In fact, I feel confident in saying we haven't had a single instant that we felt unsafe at all since being here. The locals have all been great, and everyone we speak to tells us the same thing. Most of the bad stuff you hear about that happens in the country is between rival cartels and police. In fact, tourists are the last on the list of targets here due to the money that the tourism brings in. Police, Banditos, and cartels. Although most of what you see and hear on the news is related to cartel violence, believe it or not, this is not your biggest concern in Mexico. I mean, just think about it logically. The cartels own most of the country, including the resorts and tourist towns. Hurting tourism would be a dumb business move on their behalf. However, this doesn't mean there still aren't petty criminals out there looking to take advantage of tourists, and unfortunately this includes the police. We haven't had any problems dealing with police here in Mexico. For the most part, they've seemed to be very respectful, although we haven't had much interaction with them at all. But if you start acting like an idiot, Don't be surprised if you get stopped by a police officer and now that police officer has the power to arrest you or extort you. Don't be an idiot. Obviously, bad things can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. But to avoid getting yourself involved in any of the crimes you read about, here are a few simple things to remember that we personally live by. Don't get blackout drunk in public. This one should be an obvious one, but it seems as though a lot of people come to Mexico just to drink and party. The problem isn't necessarily that you're drunk in public. The fact is that you're gonna have to get home somehow, and that makes you an easy target for petty criminals, or worse. If you're going to come to Mexico to party, maybe try sticking to the resort, or just keep it to a few drinks if you're in public. Don't walk home late at night, and you can still be taken advantage of by taxi drivers and police too. So basically, live by the rule that nothing good ever happens after midnight. Use ATMs at big banks only, not the tourist ones you see in public places. Believe it or not, this is a common scam in Mexico, and a lot of them are fake or can actually steal money from you by reading your card. Do not get involved with drugs. If you're driving in Mexico, stick to the toll roads and avoid driving at night. Lastly, and this one should go without saying, just be respectful. Unfortunately, police bribes are fairly common in Mexico, especially when you're driving a vehicle. If a police officer pulls you over, try your best to remain calm while talking to the officer. Be respectful by calling the officer senor. Be polite, never raise your voice or show any signs of aggression, frustration, or anger while you're talking to the officer. You really want to avoid escalating the situation. Never give the officer a reason to arrest you or use force against you. Remember that the officer just wants money. They don't want to fight with you. They also don't want to arrest you, as they'll have to do a lot more paperwork, so just stay calm. If the officer tells you that you've broken a law and that you need to pay a fine in cash, politely decline and insist that they give you a written citation instead. This way, you know that the fine is both legitimate and that the money isn't going to the officer's pocket. It's on the books. You also know that you're paying the appropriate fine for the crime. 9 times out of 10, the officer will not want to do the paperwork, and they will obviously not receive any of the money. They also don't want to take you down to the station, as it's just extra work for them. But remember, this is only if they are trying to bribe you for something that you haven't done wrong. If you've committed a serious crime in Mexico, then you will need to do what the officer tells you, and most likely they will take you to the station. So to sum it up, if you want to travel to Mexico, the decision is entirely yours, and you should consider all factors. This is a beautiful country with some amazing people and places to see. It's home to some of the most wonders of the world, not to mention the food and culture are second to none. But just like everywhere, there are risks involved, so make sure you do your own research. As I said at the beginning, we are not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. All I would say is the information is out there, and if you've made it this far, we hope this video may have helped you make an informed decision in some way. Also, please like and subscribe.